All right. Well, let's call the October 19th, 2020 Water and Sewer Commission meeting to order and start off with Commissioners' Public Forum. Is anyone here for that? Hearing no one. Moving on to minutes.
Good
Water
evening,
and sewer meeting.
everyone. I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of October 5th, 2020.
Do we have a second?
Second, Phil.
Very good. We'll go right to a roll call vote unless there's any questions, additions.
All right, Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Aye. All right, Paul, what do we have for warrants?
I would like to make a motion to approve the following warrants. The first four are for Amazon, one for a drafting desk, $130.39, and another one for office supplies, $12.99, and one for $4.02, and finally for Amazon, $72.98. After that, we have Prowler Water Conservation for testing that problem we had up on Route 20 and Northside Road, $800. And then Mass Water Works for training, 10/15 rather 2020, $50. And lastly, one for Veolia for $6,435, a grand total of $7,505.38.
I second.
Quick question.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, on the sludge, how much is that overage compared to our normal?
I believe that's pretty consistent with what it's been.
Okay, I thought so, but I just want to double check.
I have a
Second,
question too. Where is the drafting desk going to go? Is that for you guys' office or does it go upstairs? Or?
No, it's in our office now, more so to review plans. It's where Steve's desk used to be against the wall.
Well, hearing no further questions on that or input on placement of the desk, do we want to go to a vote?
Hello, everyone. This is Jack here.
Hi, Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Okay, just in time to vote, Jack. Mr. Gagner.
Yes, excellent. Perfect timing.
Mr. Donahue,
aye.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
All right.
All right, very good.
Next, I'd like to make a motion for the abatements. We have for the flat rate abatements, $377.72. These are senior abatements. And for the metered, we have $473.59 for a grand total of $851.31.
I second.
Any questions? Hearing none, moving on to a roll call vote.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
Great.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have Viola, a little ahead of schedule here. Is everyone ready to go?
I believe Vinny's on if he wants to start with the MOR.
John Oldie's here too, Peter. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we got you, John. Thank you.
So going over this month's MOR, we're fully staffed. We have Eric and Mike, both operators. There were no health and safety concerns this month. All the checklists were completed for the safety stuff. Common areas were cleaned, hand sanitizer was out everywhere. The training, we did some more of the VNA University training this month. It's gonna take probably another month to finish up all the stuff Veolia pushed out. We also did some Hawk training on the new TSS probe we have. Let's see, for compliance, We're still working on the pack pilot. There were no exceedances in the month of September. Aluminum levels are just above the permit. We're working on that now. But because of the administrative order, there's no violations. Operations and maintenance, we made a couple of plywood covers over Comag to keep the sulfur odor down. We're probably gonna make a few more before we're done. Work started on the blower upgrade in September. We put a new concrete pad, small building for the EQ blowers. We installed the new TSS probe. It's called the Solitax from Hawk. The probe replaced the outdated turbidity meter. That turbidity meter, it broke down twice in the past year, and we had been borrowing critical parts from other Veolia projects. So it was time just to get something that's current. The plumbers cut in the tees for the blower upgrade, so that was a pretty big undertaking for them. They excavated a hole, exposed the pipes, cut in, welded. So that's all taken care of. We did some oil changes on Clarifier 2. There's 6 gearboxes for that Clarifier. We did all the oil changes. And we put drain valves on them, so in the future they're real easy to service. We replaced the caustic tank in the chemical room, and it was really a stained tank. It was hard to see the level of caustic in there. So the ones the pack comes in, they're crystal clear. There's no stains in them. So we put one of those in its place, and it's real easy to see the chemical levels now. So there'll be no mistakes now. On September 24th, we had that PLC failure that we've already talked about on the last meeting. We reloaded the program and it's running fine now. Pump station activities. All the pump station alarms were tested and completed. The full load generators were completed this month. We put padlocks on all the hatches and cabinets that didn't have them. It was probably 15 padlocks we added out there just to make sure our stuff's secure. 5 East pump station, both pumps were clogged up with wipes in September. So we had to pull both of those apart and clean them. North Main Street, we found one of the vacuum pumps was full of water. So we cleaned it all out, oiled it, and put it back in service. It's working fine. We did 7 more samples from the collection system for the pilot test. Those are in John's data. Slim Sewer Service came out and they cleaned 5 East, 6 West, North Sturbridge, Burlingame, and North Main. And that's something we probably do twice a year to suck all the grease out and the baby wipes just to get it out of there so the pumps aren't eating it. At North Main Street, we replaced the block heater and flushed the coolant. Glen Echo had a pump failure, and when we pulled the pump out, the rail came with it. It just broke right off. It was rotted. So we replaced that rail before we put a new pump in. And typically that's something we would contract out, but because there's such low flow there, we were able to have a septic truck come and put the hose in the manhole. So they controlled the flow. We did a confined space entry with the blower and the gas meter, and we were able to make that repair safely. Grinder pump calls, we really didn't have too many in September. There were only 2 of them. 10 Park Road, there was a stuck float. The system was already upgraded. And then 19 Hollywood, the pump was bad. We replaced it, tested it, and that again was already an upgraded system. Dig safes, we received 46 of them for the month of September. And the additional remarks, we brought the sulfide dose back down to 4 ppmv. It seems to be more stable at around 4. When we went to 6, we were having a hard time controlling the turbidity. And we also recently lowered the pack dose from 140 to 130. And we're hoping with the next couple of lab results that'll show that the aluminum readings are dropping off. We've been monitoring the phosphax and it's been sitting around 0.04, which is where it typically sat before. So there's no adverse reactions to us lowering the dose. And Our newest employee, Eric, he passed his grade 1 certification on Friday, and he's ready to schedule the next one, and we're going to keep pushing him along as he can go. That concludes the MOR for September. If anybody has any questions, now would be the time.
Have any, just one or two, what's the BOD running at, or how are we doing compared to like a month or two ago?
Our BOD, Phil, it's very low. It's between 2 and 5 every time we get a sample back from the lab. So it's something we don't pay a whole lot of attention to because it's always under control.
Okay, that's good. Can you give me a little more information on that TSS, probe? I'm just curious, something new to me.
Okay, so before we had a wall-mounted turbidity meter.
Yep.
And there was a hose that would take flow from our effluent, and it would go into this picture a 5-gallon bucket.
Yep.
And then there was a sensor that sat in the bucket, and there was a constant flow going through it. So if we had a turbidity event, like something broke loose and came through the system,
yep,
it would get in that bucket and it kind of swirls around and it slowly trickles out, where this new probe actually sits in the effluent stream. And the old meter, we had to physically clean it a couple of times a week. This new one, it actually has a windshield wiper on it that cleans the eye.
Nice, nice. Sounds like a good piece of equipment.
It is. It's a really nice addition. And we can set the interval that it wipes at, so the eye's always clear. We're getting instant readings, where the old one, if a chunk of turbidity came through, the old one would hang on to that reading for an hour or two until it passed, where this new one, a chunk of turbidity comes through and it's clear a minute later.
That sounds great. One other question too was on the COMAGs. You said there were more sulfite odor. How are we doing on the H2S levels around the plant?
It's still non-detects on the meter, but I mean, the human nose can detect down into parts per billion.
Yeah, but unless it gets over 130 parts per million, then you can't smell it anymore because you overwhelm the senses.
But our meter reads in parts per million, and it never even registers it.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
On that one, and I'm concerned, for you guys with all the stuff you're doing.
That.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit of context to the turbidity, why it's so important to us. Anytime we have high levels of turbidity, we know that that's material passing through the COMAG system. And we can anticipate, because any of that collected in our sample, once we acidify the sample, either for phosphorus or for metals, we know that we're going to release anything that's trapped in that turbidity particle. So turbidity is really one of the key parameters we measure to make sure that we don't have any, contaminants in the effluent beyond what you would expect to have. Again, because both metals and phosphorus are, you acidify the sample to do the analysis, anything that's trapped on that particle will be released and then recorded. So.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Pete.
So if I can just kind of reiterate what Vinny's been able to do, he's working. Vinny's very hands-on, and he's saving us quite a bit of money just by them being able to replace the pump rail at the Glen Echo pump station with just using their labor as a typical day versus having to hire someone to come in and do that for us. Saved us quite a bit. Their ability to try and come up with creative ways to cover the COMAG clarifier to help with the sulfide problems is saving us quite a bit. Veolia's discount purchasing with Hawk and being able to purchase that new TSS probe at their reduced rate and being able to do that under the monthly cap limit without having to come to you for approval or for funding from our operating budget, I think just shows, the benefits that we get from, from Vinny and Veolia and the job that those guys are doing to kind of help our plant run better and provide us a great service. So I just want to thank them for that, because again, they do go above and beyond on certain things where I think some other contractors might say, hey, it's not in our contract, get someone in here to do that type of work. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, most definitely, and thank you for pointing that out, Peter. But definitely thank you, Vinny and crew.
You're
Vinny,
welcome.
can you just update the commission on what you're planning on doing for in-house tests after our last meeting with the Hawk representatives?
So the Hawk representatives informed us that they actually make some metals testing kits. And these won't be for reporting purposes, but it can let us know if we're looking at a problem. So for process control, we've ordered a handful of metals testing kits, and we can just kind of see what's going on before we have a problem. So they offer a zinc testing kit, a copper one, a lead one. So we've ordered those, and we ordered the incubator that works with them, and we're going to see how they work for us.
Out of curiosity, next time you talk to them, ask them if they make any probes that actually can assess that metal. So when you go into the new SCADA unit.
I will.
Excellent. Any further questions for Vinny? Well, hearing none. Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you.
Moving
guys.
on to what's next on the list here, Peter?
Veolia is on here again to give an update on the zinc pilot study.
Yeah, well,
All right.
good evening, everyone. This is John Oatley. I'll take the lead on that, Peter, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I put together a draft report and sent it out for review and comment on Friday. In full disclosure, I didn't get response back from my technical performance group till late this evening. So I do want to let the commission know that the report that they've read, I will be editing it a bit. Most collection system paragraph based on the review of our technical performance group. I think they just feel as though we should be a little bit more descriptive on what we've done on the collection system, the amount of work, but also what we believe could potentially be an opportunity at Old Worcester Road. Whether or not the Bay Path stripper change is going to make a difference or not. So I think, Pete, we're just going to have to probably strengthen that a bit based on the recommendations from Veolia.
Okay.
Outside of that, the rest of the report is pretty much as written, and I won't read it, complete. But basically, what it shows is I tried to lay it out in chronological order of what we've been doing over the period of time, and the results that we've been seeing, which corresponds to the graph that's contained within the report, and it basically shows that since the beginning of the pilot. Starting with the easy one, we've had really good results as it relates to copper. Even though that wasn't part of the original pilot, I think it still bear noting that copper seems to be a parameter that the pilot study has really shown a marked improvement. Second to that, moving up to zinc, again, the report definitely indicates that we've been able to maintain monthly compliance for zinc fairly robustly throughout the pilot test. Aluminum, as we all expected, based even on the preliminary jar testing we did, was going to be the parameter to try to work on to get it below the monthly limit of 93. There isn't any concern that we couldn't achieve the daily max, but the monthly limit of 93 is challenging. As Vinny indicated, once we've settled on a sulfide dose, and again, the report kind of outlines that we believe that somewhere between 2 and 4 parts per million of zinc of the sulfide dose is about where we can see the best effect with metals solubility. One of the things that Pete to his credit, suggested we take a look at was pH. We made 2 pH adjustments during the pilot test. And interestingly enough, they did coincide with improvements in metals removal. Whether that's a cause and effect or just coincidental, it still was worth noting, and we included that in the report. And we're going to continue to evaluate pH as a control parameter as well. We'll incrementally be increasing that. What we like to do is only adjust one thing at a time, just to make sure that we're not, we can really see what the adjustment does to what we're trying to achieve. So we did make an aluminum adjustment, as Vinny suggested this week, to lower that aluminum dose. Having the new TSS meter in place has really allowed us to have confidence that we can lower the coagulant dose without risking turbidity carryover, which again has impacts to not only the metals precipitation, but really what COMAG is designed to do, which is remove phosphorus. So with that new meter in place, we're going to continue to try to drive the aluminum dosage down as low as we can and see what that ultimately achieves in terms of parts per million in the effluent, which we know we need to be below 93. Interestingly enough, Vinny had reached out to the EPA, kind of updating them on the results of the pilot, but also looking for just some clarification. I know last meeting we talked about some discrepancy in the administrative order. And we did get that clarification from the EPA, but during that conversation, the EPA also indicated that they understand that aluminum is challenging. A lot of plants that use aluminum for enhanced treatment, like we're doing here, struggle to get it within a low level in the residual. Without knowing exactly where EPA may end up, he definitely indicated that they would take a look at the aluminum limit and see if there was an opportunity to increase that on behalf of the Charlton permit. One of the advantages of the aluminum, and it's included in the report again, is the additional benefits we see by using that chemical versus the ferric chloride. And that has been an enhanced UV disinfection. And like I said, also seeing some really good copper results. The enhancement in the disinfection really comes down to the quality of the chemical. Ferric chloride, for those of you who may or may not know, it's a byproduct of the steel industry. They take sulfuric acid and they clean steel with it. That byproduct is what we purchase, but it's very, for lack of a better word, it's a dirty chemical. It has a lot of iron in it, so it's very orange in color, and it stains everything that it pretty much comes in contact with. Including the sleeves on the UV bulbs, which then require us to have to clean them more frequently and more aggressively. I know early on in the spring we were having some difficulty with staining, so where we went and we actually had to replace all the sleeves to try to get us back into compliance. You don't have that problem with aluminum. So that's pretty much it. We're in good shape with copper and zinc. Aluminum, we're going to be driving down. We're going to be looking at pH as also an additional enhancement, potentially to our whole process. And then with respect to the pump station, like I said, I'm going to update that paragraph a bit. And then, I do think there's more work to be done at Old Worcester Road, just to confirm that, that level of zinc, first of all, is it a consistent level? If we find that it is a consistent level, and I think it is worthwhile to keep exploring what could be the source of that, because based on those levels, it accounts for about 30% plus or minus our influent load of zinc.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can continue to focus on that one pump station upstream of that, and I know Bay Path's on that, we may be able to further enhance what we're able to do at the plant by simply reducing the influent load potentially. So I apologize if I went through that too quickly, but that's really the summary of the report and what we've been trying to accomplish and what we did accomplish over the past 3 months.
Yeah. Question, John, are you going to be on for a little longer, or are you signing off?
No, I can be on as long as you need me to.
Yeah, I have a question in a little bit that
Okay.
might include things on another subject, which is the town water supply. Well, why don't I put it up there, Peter, right now?
Sure.
At some point, we were talking about town water supply, and it's farther down, okay, with Peter Noonan. But I'm wondering if we can't discuss that possibly in a special meeting, maybe get John on, maybe even Chris, okay, Peter again, and sort of just have meetings specifically looking at the town water supply, whether we should go consecutive or whether we should continue to explore. Something to go down the line, but I just wanted to see if we could do that within the next week or two.
I think I agree with Phil, and I think that the amount of subject warrants its own meeting, so to speak. And, you know, you have to block off a lot of time and make sure that the right people are on the phone call so we can have a discussion specifically about that.
Yeah, and since we have the three people that are probably is most knowledgeable, along with Pete, okay, so it would be something that I really think we should get on the table just as a discussion matter. It is just that. How much do we chase? How much don't we chase the water supply versus going, putting our effort into being consecutive?
Okay, would you want to do that as a full board, or would you want to set up a subcommittee so we wouldn't have to post and have a open meeting?
Russ, what's your thoughts on that one, sir? You're the chair.
I'm fine doing it any which way the board wants to. I'd like to participate, and
As would I.
Phil's interested. If somebody else is interested, Peter, is that the subcommittee? Is that what you're saying?
Well, a subcommittee in order for you not to post, it has to be less than 3 because you won't have a quorum. Once you hit 3 people, you have a quorum, and that meeting will have to be posted. Not that it changes, not that it changes a lot, but we would have to post it and do the formal Zoom and record it.
I think either way is feasible, Peter. Whatever your recommendation is, okay. But I really would like to really get onto this subject matter and really come to a conclusion.
So again, so it depends on who wants to be involved, and if it's just the 2 of you, if Paul says he'll just wait and hear back what the outcome is, or if he wants to be involved in the discussion, and it's just 2 of you, we can maybe set that meeting up for the middle of the day or some other time where we can just have that meeting, get everyone on the Zoom call, and and have a nice chat and talk about the process from a bunch of different angles, and see how it all kind of falls into place. If Paul, Dave, or Jack are interested also, I'm not trying to discourage them. We just have to do it a little bit different and post the meeting. And again, timing is still timing whenever everyone's available. But I think, again, Phil, referencing John Oatley to talk about possible operations, Chris is on, maybe asking him to, could be there to talk about some of the history and how they're trying to make it happen with the town of Southbridge. And we can move forward that way.
Well, maybe that's a good way to start it off, is to do something during the day, and then we could always switch it to a evening meeting if we got more information and we boiled it down further and even got it so that we could condense it to our regular Monday night meeting.
Right. Yeah. So typically.
Good to you, Phil?
Yeah, it's okay with me. I just think that, the sooner the better. That's all my thought is process. I've been pretty much on that since the last couple meetings, as you know.
Is everyone else in favor of letting Phil and myself start off with that and then boil it back to you guys?
I think that's a great idea.
Paul, Jack?
Yep. Okay, that's fine.
All right. So I will, I'll send an email out tomorrow to everybody, and with maybe a few dates, maybe the end of this week and next week, and see when people are available and try and set up that Zoom meeting.
Yeah, if you can do something in the more towards the middle of the day, Peter, that probably that might work out best for everybody.
Okay.
Right.
So you think like 1 or 2 o'clock, early afternoon after lunch?
Yeah, the earlier the better.
Okay. All right, I'll throw some dates around and kind of see when it shakes out, and we'll get together. And Phil, this is about going consecutive, correct?
This is about going consecutive and, costs of potentially like looking at a treatment plant. I think also should be on that, as well as, what does it mean for the town if we do that,
Okay.
Okay, versus, chasing various sites around at the same time, looking at the cost effectiveness of both directions.
Sounds good.
John, well, John Oatley's still on. I know we're not done with the zinc pilot study and everything that's going on, but I mean, I kind of would like to ask, based on the low daily flows that we're getting of, I don't know, maybe 125,000 gallons per day on average, the fact that we can't meet our discharge limits in a plant that's designed for 450,000 gallons per day is a little disturbing when you sit back and just think about that fact and what can happen, what's going to happen, or how do we try and take that next step so that we can make some improvements to the plant so that we'll be comfortable. And when new companies come in and want to take hopefully 4,000 or 5,000 gallons per day for a new use for hopefully some new commercial businesses.
Yeah, that's a two-edged sword, actually, Peter, because if you were to say that the loading would continue at increased flows, then yeah, it would represent a problem. But if we were to, if by some reason we got additional flow that didn't contribute to additional zinc, because it's a concentration limit and not a pounds limit for us, it may actually help us.
So as far as letting new homes connect, there's really no concern with their.
It shouldn't be if they don't contribute any additional zinc. And like I said, in kind of a strange way, additional flow would obviously dilute, the concentration and might put you below, the limit. I mean, it's something we're looking at offline is, we're sort of in a low flow period. Is this why we're seeing slightly higher elevated levels of metals,
So just thinking back to your thoughts on the Old Worcester Road pump station and mentioning, Bay Path, which contributes to it. I'll go through the system there and try and follow that upstream. I know the town hall also discharges to there. I believe the Burlingame Road School and also a portion of the Overlook does as well. So I'll try and put together, and possibly, I believe the library also. So I'll just kind of put that list together so that as we start to look upstream, you'll know kind of the larger industrial uses that are there.
Yeah, and I guess the point that my technical group was just urging us is, it's been a lot of effort, right? But there are a couple places where I think continued investigation, I think they feel would continue to be prudent. And I can't necessarily disagree with them. So.
All right, so I'll start by reaching out to them as well, just like I did to Bay Path, to let them know about the cleaning solutions they might be using and some of that simple stuff, and asking them to maybe curtail that and maybe watch what they dump down the floor drains.
But to your point, I think if we saw additional flow that didn't contain zinc, it may actually end up being beneficial to helping us treat, not necessarily treat, but to stay in more consistent compliance.
Understood.
So Peter, should we look at every specific industry and, just take a look at what might be sitting around old warehouses that with a sump pump or something, or not?
Well, I think where John identified, where we can see Old Worcester Road pump station contributing, 30% of our daily loading, right. We can just follow that upstream. I don't believe there's any there. It's mostly residential in that area. So like I said, other than the schools, the town hall, library, and the Overlook, I don't believe there are any other businesses connected at this time in that area. But I'll verify that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it's an old mill or something that just has a sump pump that's just pulling stuff in.
Yeah. So, no, but I will look into that.
Thank you.
So John, what are the next steps? We have this report that you submitted. You're gonna make a few changes. Is this what's is the next step to send this to the EPA?
Yeah, I mean, that would be my recommendation, would be to tighten this up a bit, put it under a cover letter. Submit it to EPA, demonstrating the good faith efforts that the sewer commission has made on behalf of, compliance and in response to the administrative order. Again, the EPA kind of tipped their hat a little bit in our conversation with them, that they recognize that aluminum brings a lot of benefits to the process, but it can get challenging in terms of achieving the result.
So why don't we just ask them for a higher limit?
Well, that's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping. A lot of times the limits are not water quality based. They're oftentimes just an indication of you've submitted your permit renewal, and over the past 5 years, your levels of aluminum say were this, so that becomes your limit simply by default, not for any reason.
Who do we talk to ask them to raise the limit?
It would be Koopman as part of the new permit process.
Peter, maybe we can do that.
Could we do that as at the end of this report, John? Just start that request here. At the end.
Yeah, I think what we should do is by the end of October, Pete, we should have we're going to be pretty aggressive over the next several weeks, trying to drive that aluminum number as low as we can before we start seeing turbidity breakthrough. And I think once we arrive at that, we'll sort of have a window into what we think our effluent aluminum, value will be. And then we'll probably be in a position when we submit this report to them, indicate, what that would probably look like.
One thought, I think we should take that car wash off the list we submit, because we're basically really just aiming it at one small amount of the whole system. And if the EPA looks at that, they go, well, this is the high numbers, even though we got a low rate, they might hit them or ding them. And I don't think that's fair to a business owner.
Sure. Again, I think there's another iteration of this report to be submitted to everybody for review and comment. I'll pull out one off as part of that. But, I certainly want you to have some time to go through it and make, editorial, comments and edits you see appropriate.
Yeah, I think it was great we checked them out, but I think given the amount of flow, as Pete did that extra work on that, just sort of singles them out, and it just glares right off the page as soon as you look at it.
Yep. I certainly concur. Do you want me to move on to the SCADA discussion, Pete?
You know what? I didn't put SCADA on the agenda because you said you didn't
Okay.
know if you'd be ready. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Well,
So
just to let the commission know, we did do our due diligence today, and the results coming out of it preliminary are good, and we think we're certainly going to be able to make the necessary modifications well within the budget you've outlined. So more to come on that. So.
Hey, could we expand if he has a little expand under old business or not?
It's not on the agenda. I guess for informational purposes, he can just give you a quick overview of what they found today.
That I think would be great.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Pete. I didn't see the agenda, so I don't mean to talk out of turn. But I was able to bring my construction project manager and our integrator in today. They walked through the entire SCADA system at length. They felt they briefed me afterwards. They felt very confident that that what needed to be done could be done. It could be done quickly, and then certainly well within the budget that you kind of floated out there. It was pretty straightforward from their perspective, and I had. In fact, the CPM wanted to come on the call today, but good thing I didn't have them. But we'll be ready by your next meeting, Peter, with a proposal and an ability to walk through our statement of work.
John, one question, will that include some probe potential, for, as we discussed, whether the zinc probes available, different probes available?
Yeah, well, what we're gonna do is provide a statement of work and a budget for what's needed. And then certainly if you want to add to that, if you've got the capacity and the financial capacity to do so, we can certainly add a lot to it. The integrator and my CPM guy felt very confident that the cost of the upgrade would come way, it would be below the kind of budgetary number that's been floated out. So you're definitely gonna have an opportunity to do more.
Yeah. The reason why I throw that out is because when we were originally talking about upgrading, the reason why I'm thinking mostly is, scalable, meaning getting some probes out there that actually give us real-time monitoring of some of the metals and things like that even. It's not cheap.
Yeah, no, it certainly isn't. I think, having the ability to test in-house might be a step further than we have now. It's certainly not an online probe. I don't know personally of any online probes for metals, but that doesn't mean they don't exist.
There's some out there, but I'll just leave it at that for
okay,
this
great.
meeting. Thanks.
We'll have more to talk about for sure.
Do we know what happened with the old SCADA system?
It was a purpose-built system by the old contractor. And basically the two PLCs, they're 503s, from my understanding. They're just outdated, and they're just at a point of their useful life. So they certainly need to be functionally replaced. The challenge is going to be in taking them out of service while you're trying to keep the plant up and running. So that's sort of where a lot of the work's going to have to be done. But that's what you got Veolia for. We're going to have to figure out a way to manage and operate the plant without full SCADA control. There are two PLCs which operate sort of separate input outputs for the plant. Although they communicate together and report to SCADA, they're not completely redundant of each other.
So,
Well, I
John,
walked around a little bit with them today, showing them the different pieces of equipment. And we actually have 6 different PLCs. And basically what they explained was each one kind of controls a different chunk of the building, if you would. And there's 2 of them that are old, and the other 4 are up to date and current. So there's 2 that need to be upgraded, and it's quite a bit of work to reprogram them and install the new hardware. And while they were here, we also spoke about the new SCADA computers like you guys were talking about. And they're going to build that into the estimate when they submit it to us.
I'm wondering about the system that we have now. Is that fixed?
It's currently working. Right now, it seems like about once a week, we're getting a little frozen spot in the trending. And when we see that, we're just rebooting the computer and it seems to go away.
Well, no time like the current time then.
Yeah, we've impressed upon, our people to get that proposal turned around, that statement of work turned around quickly. They told me it wouldn't be any more than 2 weeks. I urged them to try to do it within a week, but we definitely want it to be comprehensive and very, very well thought out as well. So.
Sounds good. Pete, thank you so much for getting that in front of the town and also getting it passed. Amazing job. Well. No, not easy on a short notice like that.
Thank you. John, can you just mention, when you talk about, Veolia will provide the scope of services, from that scope of services, you'll have your probably preferred vendor with a price to do the work. How will the commission get, 1 or 2 other quotes to perform the work as well?
Well, the challenge will be, again, we talked about this. It's almost as though this is engineering services, Pete, and it's almost it may be almost impossible to get apples and apples.
Wow.
I mean, we'll probably have to talk about how best to perform the work. But
that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because I know the commission's spoke in the past about getting different other prices to do the work, and I understand that we can probably do this under engineering services and the proprietary standards that go with it to not have to go out to bid formally. But I just I want to make sure that the commission is on board at this point before you have all your vendors do all this work, prevent this scope. And then we say, well, hold off, we're going to take it and put it out to bid.
Pete, can I just,
It kind of changes things for you.
Pete, can I pop in there for a second?
Sure.
We talk that as a possibility, but you know, if this thing is going down, it's gone down once, they're intermittently having to reboot it. I don't think we have a choice. We need to move forward. Now we know, as we already discussed, Viola's our top choice because they know the system, they're there on site. They're going to have to be managing it, as you said, almost by hand while some of those units are replaced. And the bottom line there is we can't beat what they've offered and off of their buying power. So, you know, I'm all for just let's go with what we got and move forward.
Again, I just wanted to confirm that now before John and his people spent all the time to create this scope of work. And then all of a sudden, if we were set to go and get some more prices, it changes everything.
Well, I think we could be set to go. I think you just have to ask the other board members.
Well, I think it's like anything else for me. I have to see it first, and then I can make that decision. But naturally, we do value Viola in a relationship and what you guys do for us. So naturally, that's a great starting point for you guys to be in, coming in with your proposal.
Yeah, and I, like I said, we're going to produce it. We'll do all that legwork, Pete. And you know, the commission, you know, whichever way they decide, you know, I mean, obviously, we'll support it. You know, we don't really see this as a money maker. You know, it's really just a service we can and we'll provide. And if that's the direction you want to go, that's what we'll do. If not, you know what I mean, it will be at the, for lack of a better word, mercy of somebody else. But if that's what, you know, that's where we're at, that's what, you know, we'll do our best.
No, again, I'm not questioning that at all. But I guess moving forward, I'll just get me that information and I'll work with the town administrator, who's the chief procurement officer, to make sure that we're on the right track and we don't miss anything.
Phil, do you only work with one company? Or do you go out and get quotes?
I'm sorry, was that a question to me?
Yeah, sorry.
We have a relationship. We've done in the last 2 years, we've done 4 of these exact sort of SCADA upgrades. And we've settled on the integrator we like because the relationship is there. So in our proposal, it will be the integrator that we're comfortable with, that we've done, like I said, the last 3 with directly that have all been successful.
Okay.
And in fact, we have a 4th system going online in Smithfield, Rhode Island, similar issue.
I'm assuming you shopped it out before you settled on that company 3 years ago.
Exactly.
Okay.
It really, you know, all of this work is basically sitting at a desk and you know, driving on and out in the field testing and checking all the input outputs. So you really need, I've seen them go sideways in some places, and it's not pretty when they do. So you have to have confidence in your integrator.
All right, thanks, John.
You know, sort of, you know, in a weird kind of way, the previous contractor, who was by default their own SCADA department. I mean, the history of the SCADA system in Charlton prior to us coming on board was very poor, very expensive, and they really did do a very, very good job. So it's just, if you don't have to look too far in the history to really see how, you know, how expensive and some of the challenges that not having a good integrator can give you.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, John. And we'll be waiting for that. I guess we're going to pencil that into the next meeting, Peter.
Yes, definitely.
So do you still need me to stay on with respect to the consecutive order, or have we closed that discussion?
I think that might be closed.
Okay, great.
Do we need to choose a date, or are you just going to talk to people, Peter?
I'll send an email out tomorrow.
Okay, appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Very good. Thank you, John.
All right.
Thanks,
Well, good night, everybody. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And thanks for the kind words, Pete. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for the good work.
All right. Next, we have Peter Newton with us.
Yes, Peter's on, and he's here to pretty much just have a discussion. I know there's been some requests to look at other parcels in town for a possible public water supply. I have emailed Peter a couple of, parcels of land to review. And I just wanted him to kind of talk you through what the process for him is to identify those properties, see if they're possible if there's any possibility for a public water supply and how he does that.
Right. So thanks, Peter. Thanks for the introduction. Peter was a couple months ago, 6 weeks ago or so, sent me an email with a couple of locations to look that the properties might become available. There's no sand and gravel to speak of up there, no outwash deposits. So it would, by definition, be a rock well. I did a little bit of poking around just to see, if there's any reason to believe that they're, that just off of, back of the envelope kind of basis, whether it would, that site or those sites would be a good area to explore. And there are some fairly large fractures to the west. There's a whole geologic contact, bedrock contact, which usually that's where two different types of rock meet. There's often fractures associated with that because they formed at different times and geologic stresses will break the rock. Nothing right there on the site that runs through the site, but maybe 1,000 feet to the west, 1,200 feet to the west. The thing about a rock well is the probability of finding the water you want decreases exponentially with the amount of water you want, if that makes sense. So a 5 gallon a minute household well, you pretty much will find those everywhere. That's just a matter of, drilling deep enough to get even a rock that has very small fractures that seep will eventually fill up the boring, the borehole, and it's generally enough to provide, a few hundred gallons a day for a home. If you're looking at 10 to 20 gallons a minute, now you're looking at, maybe 20% chance of success randomly, just randomly drilling. If you're looking at, if you want 50 or 100 gallons a minute, now you're down into the single digits in percentage of success by random drilling. So what we try to do is mitigate that uncertainty by doing some geophysical or geologic analysis. Excuse me. The first thing we would do is we would look at the mapping, the existing mapping. Then we do it's called a liniment analysis, where we look at aerial photos. We take some, we get, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at aerial photos that used to be kind of, they're not Google Earth, but actual aerial photos when they would fly. And you could take two photos that have overlapping coverage, but because they were taken from slightly different perspectives, using some stereo glasses, they become three-dimensional and you can see actual features, linear features. So what we try to do in that, by doing that, is we look for linear features on the ground that are not readily obvious. There can be a little bit of a slip fault that even if it might be 50 feet below ground, there is a relief on the surface that we can pick up. And then we want to see how many, we want to find an area where there's a bunch of those faults that intersect. All right, so that the only way a rock well gets its water is from, that water is flowing through fractures, and that water comes from above, comes from rainfall, and it percolates down. And the more fractures that intersect, the more of an area that fracture that we would want to target can draw from. So it's more water. So it's more water is conceptually available. So typically, a lot of times we'll do this as a townwide, we'll look throughout the whole town, do the liniment analysis for the whole town. It's not hugely expensive to do that. And then we'll identify favorability areas, all right? Areas where it looks like from that aerial photo survey, there's a large number of fractures that intersect. And then the next step is to take that information and go out and try to do some field checking, try to find where bedrock might outcrop. Sometimes you got road cuts that are nearby. Sometimes there's just rock that breaks the surface. And what we want to do is we want to confirm the fracture orientation that we interpreted from the aerial photos. If we can interpret that and we get confidence that what we're seeing on the ground matches what we matches to a large degree what we interpreted from the aerial photos, then we can start honing in on saying, all right, so we have confidence that this fracture, this area that we mapped out as fractures, there are fractures there. We still don't, however, know that those fractures transmit water. A lot of times you'll find that even reasonably large fractures are full of silt and sediment from just water passing through them over time. They can mineralize up. If you've ever gone, I grew up in Rhode Island, and down on the coast of Rhode Island, there's rock outcrops all over the place, and they're all, there's dark rock and then all these white veins running through them. That's quartzite. That's quartz that basically precipitated in that fracture from water flow. So we would want to confirm that the fractures that we see, the fractures that we've interpreted from the aerial photo survey, and fractures that we confirmed on the ground, that those fractures are actually still capable of transmitting water. We could do that with a series of geophysical examinations. So because we have narrowed down maybe 5 favorability zones to 2 or 3, 5 from the aerial photo survey to 2 or 3 from the ground survey. And now we can say, all right, so we don't have to do a geophysical study on the entire town. We'll just focus on these couple of areas that we've identified that are rising up through the noise of the town, the town. So we could do resistivity surveys. We could do gravimetric surveys. There's a few different geophysical techniques that we can use. There, you can also do a borehole and do borehole geophysics. So you lower geophysical tools down the hole to try to map the orientation and configuration and the size of the fractures. There's calipers to measure the physical the size of the borehole, because loose rock will collapse, and so the borehole will get wider. If there's a big fracture, the calipers will expand out, and so you'll get a distinct signal from on that. And then so we can get some information as to where the fractures are, what the water bearing zones are. And then ultimately from there, you have to do a pump test and confirm that the well will actually produce water. And then we'd be, basically from that point on, other than some technical details of the pump test, it's very similar to the process that we've been kind of going through with the Buffinville site. But getting to that site, getting to that level with a rock well is much more complicated, and there's a lot more ruling out going on in a bedrock well than there is in the overburden wells.
So you did take a look at least at one site, you said, or was there 2 sites you took a look at, Peter?
I have not been on site, but I did. I looked at it, and I looked at some very preliminary mapping. I haven't done any work. I haven't done any of the aerial photograph assessment yet. It's sort of outside the scope of what I'm working for Beta, so I have to be a little bit careful about how I spend my time and what I'm I have to be able to justify to Bob and Kendra what I'm spending my time on.
Yeah. Pete, where does that leave us as far as exploring other areas in town then?
Well, I think we're open. The challenge, not the challenge, but the next step is going to be to identify possible areas of town. I sent Peter a couple of properties up in the northwest quadrant on just off of Brookfield Road.
Yep.
And those are the ones he reviewed. There are after talking to you today and reaching out, there are other parcels that might be available also.
Yep.
So I think it's important that with the fact that we need to come up with a scope of work for the FY21 grant from the state. I think that we're just finishing up this month the site plan and that, and Peter's doing some of the work there for those wells as well to submit to DEP.
Mhm.
When that's done and we start to put the scope of work together for FY21, hopefully Peter can provide us a proposal of what we're looking at for cost for him to do the analysis of maybe 2 or 3 parcels throughout town where land may be available. And we put that in the scope for FY21 and get that done. Peter can do the research over the winter. And hopefully if he identifies a couple of spots, we can do some drilling in the spring.
Okay, so he mentioned constraints based on the current beta project, which he's working on.
Well, those are funding constraints.
I'd have to say that this gives us more information, Phil, for our ad hoc committee, so to speak, just based off what Peter's just told us. And
yeah, I concur with that. I just want to look at the aspect of, if we are doing further exploration in town, how we're going to pay for that. Okay. And, because he sourced.
I totally, like I said, this is to me more information to, I'd hope that, naturally it's not going to be as easy as, Peter, does this site look good to you and will it yield water that we're looking for? That's not going to happen. I understand, but a more condensed version is my all too optimistic thought on it, I guess.
So it sounds like a good subcommittee topic.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
So I can put together an itemized proposal that kind of goes through or budgetary estimate for you guys to ponder, possibly by the end of the week, certainly by, sometime next week, if that'd be helpful. Now,
I think that we would like you to be part of our discussion, Peter. Right, Phil?
Well, that's what I was hoping, but I'm not sure if it's.
We wouldn't want you to waste any time doing anything that would not warrant you doing it. So I think that if we started with our ad hoc committee in that phone call, that's probably going to save us a lot of time and not send you off on a wild goose chase.
oh, sure. Okay. I see what you're saying. But again, putting a proposal or giving you a budgetary, some cost numbers is not a wild goose chase from my perspective, right? So that's just giving you more information that you can use to sort out what you want to do. But that's entirely up to you.
I get where Russ is going, which is a general conversation, and then make a decision where we want to head and include you, and then get into the numbers.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, let's dial it in first a little bit further, and then go in those directions, as you more eloquently stated, Phil. Thank you.
Peter, should we include Bob in that discussion as well, seeing you're currently technically working for him, not for the town?
Bob did reach out to me and said, keep me posted, keep me informed as to what's going on. So I think, I'll circle back with Bob tomorrow. He knows the meeting's going on tonight. So I'll circle back with him tomorrow and see what he wants to do.
So is this something that we can get maybe Chris, because of his engineering experience with the town, into also, and also Viola, John, so we'd have the full perspective.
So you're talking about 2 different topics that might not necessarily share much of the same discussion. As far as consecutive water goes, I think John Oley should be involved because he can give you his thoughts on what it looks like for Veolia to operate the system for us if we go consecutive. I think John, I've sat with John, we've had those discussions before. He'll be ready to do that. I think, Chris can attend those meetings and He will, give us some background on how it's worked with Southbridge and what we might be looking at in order to be able to get the process to move forward. John will do it because he's our operator. We won't have to pay him. Chris, if you want him to come, you're probably gonna have to pay him to be there. Now that's for the consecutive water side of it. If you want to talk about new public water supply, that's a little bit of a different discussion where we need Peter Newton and Bob. I'm not sure Chris has done a lot of, research of the entire town to know, but again, I'm sure he'd be more than willing to participate if you're, willing to pay him for his time. I'm not sure he'd do it.
Well, Russ, and Pete, this is what I'm thinking. I think what the discussion that I'd like to have is this, okay? And I'm not sure if Russ is on the same page, Pete, but okay, possibly doing both, okay? Supplying part of town with water that we supply as a town, being consecutive on the other side, or being one or the other. And so it's sort of like, okay, getting numbers out there on both sides of the aisle and sort of having apples and oranges to compare, and then possibly both together. I'm not sure what your thoughts are, Russ.
Well, why don't we start very simple?
Okay.
Why don't yourself, Peter, and I start with the conversation tomorrow or the next day, and then go in that direction from there? Because then we can pull in, maybe it starts off, we add one person or we add two, or, and that might be the way to do it. But let's start off the three of us and break the discussion down a little bit further.
Okay, that's fair. I appreciate that. Okay, and I think, it would be really good to have, in the long run, get Peter involved in that, and, as a minimum.
Yeah, and this way we don't tie up everybody's time this evening on it, and we also don't get too many people involved who maybe aren't germane to the conversation early on.
Sounds very reasonable, Russ. Thanks for your clarity.
Sound good, Pete?
Yes. Yep. I think that'll work out
Right.
well.
All right. So, anytime after noontime tomorrow, I'm good. If you guys want to call me, okay?
Sounds good. I'll reach out in the morning to confirm.
Sounds good.
I'm
Okay.
not a super early person, so 1 o'clock is okay.
All right. Well, Mr. Newton, thank you. And I guess
welcome.
we're going to be pulling you back in at a later date and time to bring you back in on some other stuff.
All right, sounds great. I'm always available.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, have a great night, guys.
You too.
All right, Pete, moving forward, we have sewer privilege fee.
Yes.
Want to run?
Yes. So in the past, we've presented the sewer privilege fee for you to adopt. It was discussed, but it was never formally approved. So I just wanted to present it again and just try and get this approved so that we can use this moving forward. Our next agenda item actually has, this would be helpful to help us get through our next agenda item, but if it's not done, then it won't be a big deal. So again, the sewer privilege fee is attached to the agenda, and it pretty much just talks about when a property owner requests to connect a newly created lot that has not received a previous sewer betterment or increase their sewer use above what the original sewer betterment was previously assessed at, the property owner will be responsible to pay a sewer privilege fee based on the same methodology that was used when phase 2 sewer betterments were assessed. So we talk about residential connections where a single family home is assessed, one equivalent dwelling unit or one EDU. That fee is $8,200 per EDU and is based on 200 gallons per day. So for example, a 2-family household will pay a privilege fee of 2 EDUs and so on. It's regardless of bedrooms. It's based on household. Based on past practice, we did put an exemption in there that property located on what is known as phase 1 of sewer, their payment will be based on $1,529 per EDU, which is what the phase 1 sewer betterment was. And again, this is just, this policy was created just trying to stay consistent with what the past practice was from the commission. And then for commercial sewer connections, we talked about using the privilege fee to calculate using Mass DEP Title V calculations to determine the estimated gallons per day. Divide that by the 200 gallons per day to determine the number of EDUs for the property. The fee will be determined by multiplying that calculated EDU by $8,200. For new customers, it will be a minimum of 1 EDU per commercial property. And for commercial properties requesting additional capacity, it'll be calculated the same way, but there will not be a 1 EDU minimum charge.
Peter, I'd like to make an amendment to that.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to remove the language where this will be an exemption. If you look at that on phase 1 and put it in place, there will be an exemption if the property is located on what is known as a phase 1 sewer project. If a property has been continuously owned and occupied since the phase 1 project completion, a reduced fee shall be offered to the original owner, not to a new owner then. An original property owner who now wishes to connect to the sewer will have their betterment payment based upon the original betterment fee of $15.29 per EDU, or else a new owner's fee will be based on the current fee of $8,200 per EDU. This is the cost for the stub only. Also, in addition to that, to cover some of the other issues that are going on, any betterment fee does not include the cost of the sewer pump, grinder, not covered under the existing WSC agreements, meaning if we had a prior agreement, we would have to put that in, including new phase 1 attachments. So if somebody puts a new phase 1 attachment in, we're not paying for the grinder because that's not clear in the current way that it's being written, that we might end up on the hook for a $4,000 grinder pump. This includes installation of their and maintenance. Said cost shall be the property owner's expense, basically, but the WSC shall maintain their right to determine what type of pump, who may install or repair it, or have access to any pumps or lines that are attached to the WSC sewer system, any phase of development, past or future. Plus, below that, sewer stub shall be brought to the, and it's number of feet, whatever that is normally, onto a property beyond which the attachment to the Charlton sewer system to any property or building will be at the property owner's expense. All work done on any sewer connection is subject to WSC approval. That's a mouthful. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Do we have a second?
I second it.
You made the motion, Phil, right?
I made the motion, so I can't second. Sorry, you're right.
I'll second it for discussion.
Was that you, Russ?
It is, yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's just a couple of things I'd kind of like to make. On the first paragraph, I think it's good, except for where it says this cost is for the stub only, because on a newly created parcel, there may not be a stub, and we're not going to be responsible to install a stub to the property line.
Well, we produce a stub from the street, don't we? So how can we change that language a little bit?
No, I think we just let them do what they have to make the connection to the sewer main in the street. We don't provide them with anything.
Okay, then remove that. Okay.
They have to do that on their own.
Okay, I'll take that out.
And then when you discuss the betterment fee, in the second paragraph, the privilege fee will not include the cost of the sewer pump or grinder pump. But how it's worked in the past is if the grinder pump is needed, the property owner will purchase the grinder pump from us, so it's consistent with everything else we have, and we still maintain it as part of their sewer use. I'm not sure.
Let me ask you a question and maybe simplify all of this, Peter. Can Phil write this up, have it printed for us for our next meeting? Tag on to this agenda item?
Peter, you have it in Word format. Do you just want to edit it and represent it, or?
Well, I'm sharing my screen right now. Are you guys seeing it?
Very small.
No, it's very small.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, if you don't, yeah, if that's okay, I will work with Phil and clean this and kind of make some changes for the next meeting for your approval for the residential portion.
Okay.
As
It
far as,
doesn't really, it doesn't affect our next agenda item because this is all consistent with what we've done in the past.
correct.
So
Yeah, it's,
are you fine?
yeah, I'm fine with that. I just didn't want the town to be on the hook for a grinder pump on, if somebody comes along and says it's $1,500, I want to hook up now. They're a brand new property owner, and then we end up spending $6,000 to improve the property.
Yep. No, I'm in agreement. That's why I seconded for discussion. But
So I'll work with Phil and make some changes and have that ready to present to you for your next meeting for approval.
perfect. Excellent. All right, then moving forward to the MTD micromolding.
Yes, MTD Micromolding has finalized the addition to their building located at 15 Trolley Crossing Road. McClure Engineering has provided us with Title V calculation for the additional sewer capacity that will be used for the addition. And McClure's calculation shows an increase of 195 gallons per day from their flow used to calculate their original betterment. With our privilege fee being based on $8,200 per EDU, one EDU based on 200 gallons per day, with the 195 gallon per day increased, their privilege fee should be $7,995. I guess I would be looking for a motion from the commission if you're in agreement to assess that privilege fee to that property.
Motion to accept.
Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
Very good. Just a quick question, Peter. In the past, we've asked that at a review a year later, right? On some of these.
I'm sorry?
In the past, have we reviewed these a year later?
For actual flow?
Yes.
No, I know we discussed something like that with the Kid Power building. But
Okay.
are you thinking because it'll use more or less?
Well, it would be more, but I wouldn't be concerned that it would be less.
All right. Okay. So
I'm trying to remember on the Kid Power, Jim, we did it and he kept track of it. And
because you didn't charge him based on Title V, you charged him based on a reduced flow because he had historical use from his previous building use.
oh yes, okay, yep, that's what it was. It was the historical use issue that he was representing. Make it ring true. He recorded the data.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarification.
I think Chris McClure is on if he wants to add anything.
Good evening. So I guess the first part of the motion I'm okay about. What my interest there is through the chair is if this is approved, would that in turn allow Peter to sign off on the building permit so that the occupancy could be approved through the building department?
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, this
Go
is
ahead,
in
Peter.
front of you. As part of the project, I've been letting the contractor know again when I signed the initial building permit that the increased flow is going to be required to have a possible privilege fee associated with it. And it just kind of lay dormant until they came in for me to sign the occupancy permit. Now everything was installed and done correctly, but this step there was not presented for us to approve the privilege fee. So I believe once if this gets approved tonight, then yeah, Chris, I'll sign that occupancy permit tomorrow.
Okay.
And then from here, Sue will fill out the form that we will forward to the assessors so they can assess the privilege fee, and the property owner can do what they have to do to either pay it now, or I think they might have the opportunity to pay it over time if they choose to. So, yeah, Chris, as long as this is approved tonight, I will sign that tomorrow.
There's nothing here that's not in line with what we haven't done in the past, and I don't have any further issue with that. So if no one else does, I guess we can just bring it to a vote.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Ridlack,
Maybe Jack dropped off.
okay, Mr. Cantwell,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
Great. So
Very good.
passes unanimously. Thanks for hanging out, Chris.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
You're going to join us in our, I'll be in touch about the next meetings coming up.
Yeah, look forward to it.
All right, great.
Thanks.
All right, moving forward on to the Route 20 reconstruction. Unfortunately, I have to leave. I have something came up here for this meeting. I'm going to have to turn this over to Dave, and I will pick up with you guys tomorrow on this. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks,
Have a good
Russ.
night.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening. Thank you, Sue.
Okay, Pete, the Route 20 reconstruction.
Yeah, so as we discussed at our last meeting in other business, Route 20 would be reconstructed from Richardson's Corner Road easterly to Route 12 in Oxford. The main purpose of this reconstruction is to widen the road and allow for a Jersey barrier to be placed on the center line and divide the east and westbound portions of the road. As part of the proposed reconstruction, Mass DOT is making the following two requests. They want to be allowed to relocate approximately 800 feet of 12-inch water line that's located in Route 20 due to the location interfering with the new infrastructure they'll be putting in place as the road change. Part of my initial discussion regarding this relocation is that Mass DOT or their subcontractor must pressure test the complete line before any work begins, and then pressure test the improved line after it is completed to make sure that, again, that water line will be ready to function when we get water to it. The second request that they made is that they be allowed to extend the 1-inch service connections or 2-inch service connections from the existing road edge or existing property line to the new road edge or property line where that gets extended as part of the project. This would include relocating the gate boxes to the new property line as well, and it also relocating a few hydrants along the water line. This would create a joint on the surface line that would be under the new roadway, which could be looked at as a weak point and a concern. I shared that concern with them, and the reason why they would not rather do a whole new lateral from the water main across the road is that they are not doing full road reclamation, and that new trench may cause them a settling issue because they're not going to be doing that work over the period of 2 years where they can give it the time to settle over a winter. So I just wanted to put this out in front of you for your consideration and discussion, and see how you would like me to proceed.
So they're considering using the existing laterals, is that true by understanding?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and they might just extend off of them or shorten them depending on where the pipe's going.
Correct. So where it meets the gate valve on the current property line, if they're extending, they'll remove that gate valve. You put a union, connect to the existing pipe and extend it to the new property line and install a new gate valve.
Yeah, we don't have anybody on that line at this point anyways, so.
It's correct. It's not active at this time.
I don't have a problem with any of that stuff.
Okay.
We had talked about whether or not we want anybody to keep an eye on that project or not, even intermittently. When we were talking about inspection last week about it a little bit. What's your thoughts on that? I know you wanted it pressure tested before and after. Is there anything else we want to do? Make sure that they're meeting the standards that you're putting out as a possible be accepted.
Yeah, so this project won't be taking place until, I believe, spring of 2022, because they still have to do all the right-of-way land takings and stuff like that. So this isn't scheduled for another, say, year and a half. So with our construction standards, hopefully we'll have those done in the next couple of meetings. I can provide Mass DOT with a copy of those construction standards, and that'll make their subcontractor do the work consistent with that. So by 2022, if we are, say, a consecutive water supply, we will have staff to be out there doing inspections and oversight. I'm not sure that we would necessarily want to require an engineer and incur that cost.
No.
So, but I think we have some time to really identify what type of oversight we want instead of trying to make that decision right now.
I concur with you, because it could be just something as simple as you going out a couple days a week for 10 minutes and taking a look and just saying, hey, yep, there's no dented pipes, there's no, whatever.
Yeah.
Or even one of the people from, who are retired.
Do you need a motion on this, Peter?
No, it's just, I know we discussed it a little bit under other business last meeting, and it's just kind of bringing it up so we can kind of rediscuss it a little bit formally. I'm not sure we really need a motion at this point. I'll let the Mass DOT know what we discussed, and they can kind of figure out what they need to do to make that happen when the project starts.
All right. Anything else? All right. I'm not hearing anything else. I want to move on to old business.
Yeah. So
go ahead. Goals and objectives.
Yes. First item under old business is our goals and objectives. Based on the discussion at our last meeting, I kind of cleaned up the goals and objectives, added what was discussed, and put it forward to you just for final approval. So I can take this and share it with the town administrator and HR, and we can move forward there. There is a copy attached to your agenda. I will try and share my screen again, see if it comes up. So you can see
Peter,
it.
can you remind me what was changed from last time this was written up?
I believe we added the SCADA upgrade, talked about getting the funding, and that's where it was discussed about competitive companies' pricing. We added work with Peter Newton to identify possible alternative water supplies in town. And lastly, to work to ascertain if the Masonic Home will allow us to purchase some of their property for water wells. The rest of it was the pilot study, the EQ tank blower upgrade, continue to work with the Bufferville Public Water Supply, work on consecutive water supply, oversight for the ExxonMobil waterline project. So the rest of it was pretty consistent. So I would be looking for a motion to approve these goals and objectives.
I hear a motion?
Motion to accept as written.
Second.
You seconded it, Dave?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. So I think there's only Paul stepped away.
Okay.
So when we see him come back, there's a phone number here that's muted. I'm not sure if that's Jack or somebody else. If they're talking, they're muted. I tried to unmute it, but it won't work. So, all right, here comes Paul. Paul, there's a motion on the floor to approve the goals and objectives.
Aye.
Aye. Gagnon votes aye. Mr. Donahue.
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
And again, that the other number is muted, but it does pass unanimously with 3 votes for.
All right. Moving on to water line construction update, Peter.
Yes, so the overlooking bump Bay Path pump stations, Albany's Brothers is still working to finalize the installation of the Bay Path pump station. They're hoping to have it hopefully operational by the end of October. As far as the school loop goes, Albany's again has finished paving the roads affected by the water line installation. They're still working on touch up on driveways, backing up the road edges, trying to paying attention to detail where some of that may wash out. They're replacing that and trying to finalize that work. The water line service connections in that area, ExxonMobil has amended their agreement with Albanese to include the service connection. So Kleinfelder is working with residents to coordinate the service line work. Albanese, I believe last week, started actually doing some water line service connections. They're running the line into the basement, capping that line, pressurizing the line, testing it, and just leaving it there because that water line is not active. So I believe they probably have 5 or 6 of those services, those houses services run into the basement. Once they get enough of those ready to go, we can activate the Old Worcester Road water line, and they'll have their plumbers come in and start making the connections inside the basement so that those homes will be on the water line. And again, the school loop has not yet been activated, so the 1-year grace period has not begun.
Peter, I was reading over this the other day and I saw that line at the bottom, and I don't know if I dreamt this or if we actually talked about this. We're going to send every person on that line a return receipt requested envelope, correct? So that they have to sign for it, so we know 100% that they got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Good point.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, no other business. Next meeting announcement.
Sure. So do you want to do November 2nd, which is in 2 weeks, or November 9th, which is in 3?
Well, so tell me 2 weeks after November 9th, are we landing on Thanksgiving week?
Yes, 2 weeks after the 9th would be the 23rd, which would be Thanksgiving week.
So so I'm not looking at a calendar. Should we meet?
You got the 19th and the 26th, so, you know.
We can do the 2nd and the 16th.
Where's
And then do
Treehouse?
what after that? The 3rd?
No, December wouldn't be until the 7th.
Okay.
Or the 30th, the Monday after Thanksgiving, but I'm not sure you want to do that.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't think we should do that.
How about we do the
Day off.
I know. How about we do the 9th, and then we can determine from there. Maybe we'll just go all the way out to December 7th, depending on what we have in front of us for pertinent information.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Question there. We have Treehouse coming back in at some point, Peter, or not?
I sent him an email, and I've not heard back. So I'm sure they'll come back at some point, but I'm waiting for them to make the request.
And the other thing is your proposal for, the water regs, as, you
Construction standards.
yeah, the whole water system, regs is whether we want to put that on too.
Yeah, I'll have that on especially if we're going up to the 9th.
Right.
If we go to the 9th, that will give John Oatley hopefully enough time to finalize his scope and services for the SCADA and be able to hopefully present us with a package for review. And
I presume we'll have some stuff out of our subcommittee we want to discuss too.
Yes.
now and then.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we'll do November 9th.
Everybody's good with that?
Yep.
All right. I hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
Jack, I know you're there, but for some reason you can't unmute, so thanks for staying anyways.
Have a great night.
Thank you. You too, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.